It was supposed to be a good day, one of those rare, perfect days you file away to remember when things get hard. My fiancé Kyla and I had decided to share our news at my parents' Sunday dinner, a weekly ritual of dry roast chicken and simmering resentment. My name is Trinity, I'm 29, and for my entire life I've been the understudy in a play starring my older sister Stella. Stella, who is 32, arrived a half-hour late, flashing a diamond that could probably be seen from space. She didn't even wait for everyone to sit down. "Morgan proposed," she announced, thrusting her hand out. My mother Reagan shrieked with a sound I hadn't heard since Stella was crowned prom queen. My father Bryant stood up and hugged her, his face beaming. "That's my girl," he said, his voice thick with pride. The next 20 minutes were a blur of champagne, frantic calls to relatives, and my mother already scrolling through wedding venues on her phone. I caught Kyla's eye across the room. He gave me a small, encouraging nod. He's a good man, Kyla. At 31, he has a quiet strength that anchors me. He builds custom furniture, and his hands, though often covered in sawdust, are the gentlest I've ever known. I waited for a lull, a tiny pocket of silence, and cleared my throat. "We actually have some news too," I said, my voice feeling small in the cavernous room. I held up my own hand where the simple, elegant ring Kyla had designed himself sat on my finger. Kyla and I are engaged. The reaction was different. My mother's smile tightened. "Oh," she said. "Well, congratulations. How nice." My father clapped Kyla on the shoulder. "Good for you, son. Welcome to the family." It was the same tone he used when I got a B+ on a report card while Stella had gotten an A. Polite, but disappointed. Stella glanced at my ring for a fraction of a second before turning back to our mother. "Mum, I was thinking a spring wedding. Maybe at that chateau out in wine country. We have to book it ASAP." And just like that, I was invisible again. My engagement, my moment, was an inconvenient footnote in the grand production of Stella's life. It was a story I knew by heart. When I was 10, my parents cancelled my small birthday party because it was the same weekend as Stella's regional dance competition. For my high school graduation, they gave me a $100 savings bond. For Stella's, they bought her a car. She went to a private university out of state. I went to the local public college while living at home. The reasoning was always the same. Stella needs the resources to build her future. "You've always been so practical, Trinity. You understand." I didn't understand. I just learned to stop asking. Later, while I was helping clear the table, my mother gushed about Stella's fiancé. "Morgan is just brilliant," she said, loud enough for Kyla to hear from the living room. "He's a senior consultant at a top tech firm. His family has a legacy. This is an investment in Stella's future." She paused, then glanced at Kyla, who was quietly talking to my dad. "Kyla seems like a nice boy." "He's okay, but not very refined, is he? A little rough around the edges." I felt a familiar hot shame creep up my neck. I wanted to scream that Kyla was the most refined man I knew. He valued integrity, honesty, and hard work, not social climbing and empty praise. But I just stacked the plates and said nothing. It was easier that way. It was always easier. As Kyla and I were getting our coats to leave, I went to the kitchen to get a bottle of water for the drive. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard my parents' hushed voices. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. "We'll have to take out a small loan for the venue deposit," my father was saying, his voice strained. "But it's worth it. We have to make a strong impression on Morgan's family." Then my mother's voice, sharp and clinical, cut through the air and straight into my heart. "We'll manage," she said. "Trinity's engagement. That can be low-key." She's used to low-key. The words "she's used to low-key" echoed in my head for weeks. They became the soundtrack to my life as Stella's wedding planning consumed my family like a tidal wave. My mother Reagan transformed into a 4-star general commanding an army of one, Stella. They spent their days touring venues, tasting cakes, and debating the precise shade of ivory for the floral arrangements. The chateau, a sprawling estate in wine country that looked like it had been airlifted from the French countryside, was secured within the first week. We had to pull from our retirement savings and take out a small loan for the deposit, my father Bryant told me over the phone, his voice a mixture of martyrdom and pride. But your sister deserves the best. This is her moment. Meanwhile, Kyla and I sat on the floor of our small apartment, eating pizza from a cardboard box and planning our own wedding on a legal pad. A garden ceremony, I said, circling the words. Maybe at the public botanical gardens. It's beautiful in the spring. Kyla reached over and took my hand. Are you sure that's what you want, Trin? We can afford more if we save for another year. I shook my head, the certainty settling deep in my bones. No, I don't want to wait. And I don't want their help. I don't want their money, their opinions, or their passive-aggressive sighs. This is for us. We'll pay for it ourselves. We don't need anyone's validation. He smiled. That slow, genuine smile that always made me feel safe. Okay, he said. A garden wedding it is. And it felt more real, more meaningful than any chateau ever could. A month later, I was at Stella's bridal shower. It was held in the private room of an expensive downtown restaurant, filled with women in pastel dresses sipping champagne. I felt like an anthropologist studying a foreign tribe. Stella was holding court, recounting a dramatic story about her dress fitting while my mother beamed at her side. I was trying to make myself as small as possible in a corner when Reagan cornered me by the gift table. She held a flute of champagne, her knuckles white. Trinity, we need to talk, she said, her voice low and sharp. She steered me toward a small alcove, away from the chatter. Her eyes scanned my simple blue dress, a gift from Kyla, with undisguised disapproval. I'm worried about you, she began, which was her opening line for every lecture I'd ever received. This marriage, it's a mistake. I stared at her, speechless. What are you talking about? Kyla is a labourer, she hissed, as if the word itself was a disease. He works with his hands. His family has no name, no connections. Morgan's family is legacy. Stella is securing her future. You, she said, her gaze sweeping over me with pity, are marrying below your station, in every way. You're throwing your life away on a carpenter. The air left my lungs. All the years of being second best, of being the practical one, of swallowing my hurt, it all coalesced into a single, searing point of pain behind my eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that Kyla's hands had built a life for us, that his integrity was worth more than Morgan's entire stock portfolio, but I just stood there, silent, my specialty. Think about your future, Trinity, she finished, her tone softening into faux concern. It's not too late to reconsider. She patted my arm, a gesture devoid of any warmth, and walked back to the party, her smile firmly back in place. I stood in the alcove, my heart hammering against my ribs, feeling the familiar sting of tears I refused to let fall. I pulled out my phone, needing a distraction, a lifeline to the real world. I opened my messages to text Kyla, to tell him I loved him, that he was all that mattered. That's when I saw it. A new message from an unknown number. It was short, just a single sentence. My blood ran cold as I read the words. The chateau's owned by the Zimmermans. My fingers trembled so badly I almost dropped my phone. I read the text again, then a third time, the words glowing in the dim light of the alcove. The chateau's owned by the Zimmermans. It didn't make sense. Kyla's father, Walter, was a quiet, unassuming man. He lived in a modest ranch house, drove a 10-year-old truck, and his idea of a fancy dinner was the local steakhouse. He was successful, Kyla had told me, in commercial real estate, but he never, ever talked about it. I didn't mention the text until Kyla and I were back in our apartment. The scent of champagne and my mother's perfume still clung to my dress. I handed him my phone. He read the message, his brow furrowing. What is this? It came during the shower, I said, my voice barely a whisper. From a number I don't know. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the screen. My dad owns a lot of properties through a holding company, he said slowly. He never uses his own name. He hates the attention. He looked up at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. It's possible. The next day, I called Walter and asked if we could meet for coffee. He agreed without hesitation. We met at a small, no-frills diner halfway between our homes. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth with a black coffee, reading a newspaper. He looked more like a retired high school history teacher than a property mogul. I slid into the booth, my heart pounding. "Thank you for meeting me." "Of course, Trinity," he said, folding his paper. "Kyler told me what your mother said to you at the shower. I'm sorry you were subjected to that." His directness caught me off guard. "He did?" Walter nodded, his expression serious. He was angry and hurt for you. "Which is why I thought you should know the truth." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee. "I had my assistant send you that message. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I figured you deserved all the facts." I just stared at him. "So it's true? You own the chateau?" He gave a small, almost reluctant nod. "I built it 12 years ago. It's a good investment. Kyler and I, we don't flaunt things. It's not how we were raised. But when Kyler told me both you and Stella were getting married, I thought it would be a nice, quiet gesture, a poetic wedding gift to both my son's bride and her sister." He looked me straight in the eye. "I waived the venue fee for your parents, anonymously, of course. They think the manager gave them a discretionary discount for booking so early. The room started to spin. My parents had taken out a loan. They were pulling from their retirement, all for a show. For a property that my unrefined fiancé's family owned outright. The bitter cosmic irony of it was so thick I could barely breathe. I saw the power in it then, a single, undeniable truth that could shatter the entire facade my parents had so carefully constructed. "They don't know," I said, the idea taking root. "They have no idea." "None," Walter confirmed. "And they don't have to. The gift was for you and Kyler. What they do with their end of it is their business." He leaned forward slightly. "But Trinity, if their behaviour is causing you pain, just know the truth is a tool you have every right to use. I met my best friend Zara for a drink that night and told her everything. She listened intently, a slow, wicked grin spreading across her face. 'Oh, this is beautiful,' she said, swirling the ice in her glass. 'This is Shakespearean level stuff.' She looked at me, her eyes sparkling. 'You can't say a word, not yet.' 'What do you mean?' 'Don't you see?' she said, leaning in. 'They're building this entire narrative of sacrifice and class on a foundation of lies. They're bragging about a castle they didn't pay for. You have to let them finish it. Let them build their throne with borrowed bricks. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall.' Her words settled over me, and for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of control. I wasn't the victim in their story anymore. I was the narrator. The wedding was 2 months away. The rehearsal dinner was held in a private dining room at the chateau itself. My parents were in their element, gliding through the room, accepting compliments. Stella was radiant, Morgan was stiff, and I was a ghost observing it all. During the toast, my father stood up, glass in hand. He spoke of hard work and providing the best for his children. Then Reagan stood beside him, beaming. "We're just so thrilled to give Stella the wedding she's always dreamed of," she said, her voice dripping with manufactured humility. "We're basically carrying this whole wedding because she deserves it. I mean, look at this venue. A legacy." Across the table, Kyler caught my eye. I took a slow sip of my water and gave him the smallest, faintest smile. The show was just getting started. Watching my parents bask in false glory at the rehearsal dinner unlocked a Pandora's box of memories I had long suppressed. It wasn't just about the big things like the car or the private school tuition. It was the 1,000 tiny cuts, the small daily dismissals that taught me my worth was conditional. I remembered being 8, winning first place in the school science fair with a project I'd spent weeks on. I came home beaming, clutching my blue ribbon. Stella, who was 11, had a ballet recital that same night. My ribbon was taped to the fridge without a word, and we rushed out the door so we wouldn't be late for her performance. After the recital, my parents took her out for ice cream to celebrate. I sat in the back of the car, the sticky sweetness of her victory filling the air while my own achievement dissolved into nothing. I remembered being 17 and getting a partial academic scholarship to the state university. My father had looked at the acceptance letter and said, "That's good, Trinity. It'll help with expenses." A few months later, when Stella decided she wanted to study abroad for a semester in Italy, they cashed out the savings bonds they'd been putting away for my college education to fund her trip. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime cultural experience," my mother had explained, as if my 4 years of education were just a line item on a budget. Each memory was a stone, and I had been carrying them for so long I'd forgotten how heavy they were. But now, armed with Walter's secret, the weight was different. It wasn't crushing me anymore. It was ballast. It was channeling all that pain into a quiet, unshakable strength. I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling strategic. The final weeks leading up to the wedding were a masterclass in Stella's self-absorption. The golden child was cracking under the pressure of her own perfect image. She threw a screaming fit at the florist because the peonies were more blushed than bashful pink. She made her bridesmaid cry during a dress fitting by loudly announcing she looked like a sausage in seafoam. My mother followed in her wake, smoothing things over with caterers and designers, murmuring, "It's just the pre-wedding jitters. She's a perfectionist." Morgan, Stella's polished fiancé, seemed to be losing his shine. His smiles became tighter, his posture more rigid. During one particularly ugly incident at a cake tasting, where Stella accused the baker of trying to poison her with almond extract, I saw Morgan physically recoil. He looked exhausted. Kyla noticed it too. We were at our apartment one evening, a week before the wedding, addressing invitations for our own small ceremony. He was carefully lettering each envelope while I applied the stamps. "I saw them at that home decor store downtown today," he said, not looking up from his work. She was yelling at him about throw pillows in the middle of the store. He finally paused and met my gaze. "That guy's regretting it. You can hear it in his laugh now. It's hollow." He was right. The effortless charm Morgan had exuded when they first got engaged had been replaced by a strained, brittle politeness. He looked like a man trapped in a gilded cage, and the door was about to be locked. The day before the wedding was the chapel walk-through at the chateau. The place was magnificent, with soaring ceilings and stained glass windows that cast jewel-toned light across the marble floors. Stella was directing the wedding planner with the authority of a drill sergeant. My parents stood by, nodding at her every command. I was standing off to the side, just watching, when my father approached me. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder, his expression grave. "Trinity," he said, his voice low. "Tomorrow is a very important day for this family." For Stella, I waited. "I need you to be graceful. Keep your husband quiet. Don't draw any attention. Just smile and be supportive. Let your sister shine." He squeezed my shoulder as if to emphasize his point. "You've always been good at that." He walked away before I could respond, rejoining my mother and Stella to admire the altar. I stood frozen in a beam of sapphire light, his words echoing in the vast empty space. "You've always been good at that." He said it like a compliment, a testament to my character. But I heard it for what it was, a command to remain in the shadows where I had always been. I looked over at Kyla, who had seen the whole exchange. He gave me a look that said, "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, the cold, still air of the chapel filling my lungs. I nodded back at him. I was more than okay. I was ready. The morning of the wedding was chaos orchestrated by a tyrant. I arrived at the bridal suite at the chateau to find Stella in full bridezilla mode. Hairpins were flying, makeup artists were cowering, and the air was thick with the scent of hairspray and simmering rage. "The mimosas are too pulpy!" she shrieked at a terrified-looking catering assistant. "Are you trying to ruin my entire day?" My mother, Reagan, rushed to her side. "Don't you worry, sweetie. Mommy will handle it." She turned to the young woman. "Get her a new one, now." And strain it this time. I watched the scene from the doorway, a silent observer as always. The staff were scrambling, their faces a mixture of fear and professional resolve. My parents defended every tantrum, excused every insult. They saw a passionate bride demanding perfection. I saw a deeply insecure woman unravelling because, for the first time, the spotlight she craved was burning her. I found a quiet corner to get my own makeup done, keeping my head down and my mouth shut. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from Zara. "You are not going to believe this. Your mother is on a roll." A second text followed immediately. "She's telling Morgan's great aunt that his family was so generous to bless them with the use of this magnificent venue. She's literally taking credit for a gift she never received." I read the message, and a cold clarity washed over me. This wasn't just an omission or an assumption anymore. This was an outright lie. My parents were actively fabricating a story to inflate their own social standing, using Walter's quiet generosity as a prop. They weren't just building a throne on borrowed bricks. They were engraving their own names on them. I felt a sudden need for fresh air. I slipped out of the suite and walked down a long, quiet hallway, my bridesmaid dress rustling against the marble floors. I found a small, secluded balcony overlooking the vineyards. The morning sun was warm on my face. A few minutes later, a calm voice spoke from behind me. "It's a beautiful view from here." I turned to see Walter standing there. He was dressed in a simple, well-tailored suit that made him look distinguished but not flashy. Kyla was standing beside him. "It is," I said, managing a small smile. Walter's gaze was kind but perceptive. He could see the tension in my shoulders, the storm behind my eyes. "Are you all right, Trinity?" I took a deep breath. "My mother is telling people that Morgan's family gifted them the venue." Walter's expression didn't change, but a muscle in his jaw tightened. Kyla put a steadying hand on my arm. "We can just let it go," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "It doesn't matter." "It does matter," Walter said gently. "It matters because it's a lie. And it matters because it's hurting you." He looked out at the rolling hills, the rows of grapevines stretching toward the horizon. "I made this offer to you and Kyla as a gift, a gesture of family. I'm not interested in seeing it used as a tool for social climbing." He turned back to me, his eyes holding mine. "The plan we discussed, it's still an option. I can say something during my toast, but I need you to be sure. If this is still what you want, I'll do it. But once it's said, it can't be undone. The consequences will be real." I thought of my mother's cutting words at the bridal shower. I thought of my father telling me to stay quiet and let my sister shine. I thought of every birthday, every achievement, every part of me that had been minimized to make Stella seem bigger, brighter. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correction. It was about setting the record straight, not with anger or malice, but with the simple, undeniable weight of the truth. I looked from Walter's steady gaze to Kyla's supportive one. He squeezed my arm gently, leaving the decision entirely to me. I finally had a voice, and I knew exactly how I wanted to use it. I nodded at Walter, my resolve hardening into steel. Let the toast burn the veil. The ceremony was exactly what my parents had paid for. Lavish, excessive, and utterly theatrical. Stella glided down the aisle in a dress that cost more than my car, a serene smile plastered on her face, as if she hadn't been screaming about mimosas just hours before. Morgan waited at the altar, his own smile looking more like a grimace. From my spot in the bridesmaid lineup, I had a perfect view of my parents in the front row, dabbing at their eyes with performative emotion. They weren't watching their daughter get married, they were watching the premiere of a movie they had produced. The reception was even more over the top. A string quartet played in the grand ballroom, ice sculptures melted slowly on buffet tables, and waiters circulated with trays of champagne and caviar. The whole affair felt less like a celebration of love and more like a corporate networking event. My parents took centre stage as soon as the dinner plates were cleared. My father, Bryant, tapped his glass for attention, his chest puffed out. He launched into a rambling speech about family, tradition, and the sacrifices parents make for their children. "When you see your daughter achieve her dreams," he said, gesturing towards Stella, "you know that every sacrifice was worth it. We've always believed in giving our children the foundation they need to build a legacy, and today we see that legacy taking shape." The room applauded politely. My mother, Reagan, then took the microphone. her voice trembling with practiced emotion. She spoke of Stella's grace and beauty, and then turned her attention to Morgan's family. "And we are so, so grateful," she said, looking directly at Morgan's parents, "for the incredible generosity that has been shown to our family. This beautiful place, it's a testament to what can be achieved when two great families come together." I saw Morgan's mother give his father a slightly confused look. They clearly had no idea what she was talking about. I glanced over at my friend Zara, who was seated at a nearby table. She caught my eye and subtly angled her phone, pretending to adjust something on the table. She was recording. Another friend, Zoe, who had known our family since childhood and had witnessed the favouritism firsthand, was doing the same from the other side of the room. They were my silent witnesses, collecting receipts. Finally, after the best man and maid of honour had given their speeches, the MC announced the final toast of the evening. "And now, a few words from the father of the groom's family, Mr. Walter Zimmerman." A quiet ripple of anticipation went through the room. Walter, in his understated suit, looked completely at ease as he walked to the microphone. He wasn't a man who commanded attention with volume, but with presence. He adjusted the mic, his calm demeanour a stark contrast to my parents' theatricality. He started conventionally with warm words about love, marriage, and the joining of families. He congratulated Stella and Morgan, his voice smooth and sincere. My parents were beaming, nodding along, completely oblivious. Then he paused. He took a slow sip of water, and the energy in the room shifted. He scanned the crowd until his eyes landed on me and Kyla. He gave us a small, almost imperceptible smile. He raised his glass. "Let's talk about what a gift truly is." "A true gift," Walter continued, his voice even and calm, resonating through the suddenly quiet ballroom, "is given without expectation of praise. It's a quiet gesture, meant to support, not to be a monument to one's own generosity." He turned his gaze slightly, a subtle shift that seemed to encompass both Stella and me. "When my son Kyla told me that both of the Matthews daughters were getting married this year, I was overjoyed. Family is everything to us. And in our family, we believe in treating our children's partners as our own." He paused again, letting the words hang in the air. My mother was still smiling, but it was a brittle, confused expression. My father's hand, holding his champagne flute, had frozen halfway to his mouth. "And so," Walter said, his voice ringing with clarity, "we were proud to gift the use of our venue, this beautiful chateau, to both our future daughters-in-law for their weddings. Anonymously, of course." A collective gasp rippled through the room. It was a soft, sharp sound, like 100 people sucking in their breath at once. Stella's perfectly made-up face went slack with shock. Her hand, clutching her bouquet of blush peonies, went limp, and the flowers tumbled to the floor with a soft thud. Walter wasn't finished. He looked directly at me, his expression softening with genuine warmth. "I especially want to thank Trinity," he said, his voice full of paternal pride I'd never once heard from my own father. "Thank you for your grace, for your integrity, and for never once asking your parents for a dime to fund your own wedding, choosing instead to build your future on your own terms, with your own hard work. You and Kyla are a testament to what a true partnership looks like. We are so proud to welcome you into our family." The silence that followed was absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, thick with shock and dawning horror. Every eye in the room darted between Walter, my parents, and me. I didn't look at them. I kept my gaze straight ahead, my hands folded quietly in Kyla's lap under the table. His thumb stroked the back of my hand, a steady, grounding presence. I saw my father's face go completely pale, the colour draining from it as if a plug had been pulled. My mother, Reagan, made a small choking sound and took a gulp of her wine, some of it sloshing over the rim of the glass onto the white tablecloth. Then, in a single, deliberate movement, Morgan removed his arm from around Stella's waist. He took a small step away from her, creating a physical distance that was as loud as a scream. Zara, sitting at the next table, leaned over and whispered in my ear, her voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. That was biblical. The spell was broken. A low murmur erupted across the ballroom as guests began whispering to each other, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid fascination. The lie, so carefully constructed, had been dismantled with a few simple, honest sentences. My mother couldn't take it. She pushed her chair back with a screech, the sound grating in the tense quiet. Without a word, she turned and stormed out of the ballroom, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. A few of her closest relatives, looking deeply uncomfortable, hesitated for a moment before scurrying out after her. The great performance was over, and the producers were fleeing the theatre. The wedding didn't so much end as it did collapse. After my mother's dramatic exit, the atmosphere became unbearably awkward. The band played a few half-hearted songs to a near-empty dance floor before packing up early. Stella was last seen being led away by a bridesmaid, her face streaked with mascara. Morgan had simply vanished. Kyla and I slipped out quietly, the chaos of their implosion fading behind us. The aftermath was a slow-motion car crash, relayed to me in bits and pieces through text from Zara and a few guilt-ridden relatives. Morgan, as Kyla had predicted, was taking time to re-evaluate. The word from his family was that the engagement was off. Stella, stripped of her fiancé and her carefully crafted image, was spiralling, refusing to leave her room at my parents' house. My mother, Reagan, was on a rampage, calling relatives to spin a new narrative about how Walter had humiliated them, how they'd been cruelly deceived. But the truth was out, and it had more power than her lies ever did. My phone, which had been silent for years except for obligatory holiday texts, started buzzing with messages from cousins and aunts. I'm so sorry for how they've always treated you. You handled that with so much class. Even a few of Stella's bridesmaids reached out. They didn't offer apologies, but they started following me on social media, their sudden curiosity a quiet admission that they were finally seeing the real story. For the first time, I wasn't an afterthought. I was a person. Kyla and I returned to our world. It was a world of sawdust and sunlight in our small apartment, of quiet dinners and easy laughter. It was modest and real, built on a foundation of respect, not performance. A few weeks after the wedding that wasn't, we got married at the Botanical Gardens on a perfect spring afternoon. It was a small ceremony with just Kyla's family and a handful of our closest friends. Walter walked me down the aisle. There was no grand reception, no ice sculptures, just a joyful backyard barbecue at Walter's house. It was low-key, and it was perfect. I didn't feel vengeful. I didn't even feel triumphant. What I felt was a profound sense of clarity, as if a fog I'd been living in my whole life had finally lifted. The anger and resentment I had carried for so long had been replaced by a quiet, peaceful emptiness. I wasn't defined by their approval, or the lack of it. I was just me, and that was enough. One evening, about a month after our wedding, Zara sent me a link. It was a video, pieced together from the clips she and Zoe had taken at the reception. It started with my father's speech about sacrifice, then my mother's gushing lies about generosity, before cutting seamlessly to Walter's calm, devastating toast. The camera work was shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. It had been posted on a local wedding-shaming forum and had, in the parlance of the internet, gone viral. I watched it, curled up on the sofa next to Kyla. I saw my parents' faces shift from pride to confusion to horror. I saw Stella's bouquet fall. I saw Morgan step away. And then, at the very end, the camera zoomed in on me for just a second. I was looking straight ahead, my expression unreadable, but as Walter finished speaking, the faintest hint of a smile touched my lips. It wasn't a smile of victory, but of release. It was the smile of a woman who was finally being seen, not as a shadow, but on her own terms. All it took was truth, patience, and karma, wearing a borrowed crown.
The sickly sweet scent of disinfectant couldn't mask the tension hanging in the hospital corridor. I lingered outside room 342, my hand frozen on the medication cart, as my husband's voice drifted through the partially open door. Everything's arranged. She won't suspect a thing until it's too late. My name is Eliana, and after 19 years of marriage, I'd never heard that tone in Ronald's voice before. Calculated, cold, almost predatory. The transfer should be complete by Friday, he continued. Once the paperwork's filed, she'll have no legal recourse. Trust me, I've covered every angle. The cart's wheels squeaked as I shifted my weight. My hands trembled as I pretended to reorganize supplies, straining to catch every word. A patient call light flashed at the end of the hall, but for the first time in my 15 years as a nurse, I ignored it. Martha's divorce left her vulnerable. Perfect timing, really. And Marie, well, teenagers are easy to manipulate when they're angry at their parents. My sister and my daughter. The two people I'd been desperately trying to protect since Martha's marriage imploded 6 months ago. The medication vials clinked as my fingers tightened around the cart handle. Mother's already on board. She doesn't know the details, but she'll back my play. She always does. Of course my mother would side with Ronald. She'd worshipped him since the day he'd walked into our lives, the successful businessman who'd swept her eldest daughter off her feet. If she only knew what I'd discovered in the past few weeks. The missing funds from our joint accounts, the secret meetings, the whispered phone calls. Austin's keeping Marie distracted. Smart kid knows exactly what to say to keep her mind off what's happening at home, worth every penny I'm paying him. My daughter's tutor, the charming young man I'd trusted to help with her college preparations. The betrayal burned in my throat like acid. Footsteps approached the door. I pushed the cart forward, trying to appear busy as Ronald emerged, phone still pressed to his ear. He paused when he saw me, his practiced smile sliding into place. Gotta go, he said into the phone. Important meeting. He ended the call, tucking the phone into his suit pocket. Sweetheart, what are you doing on this floor? I thought you worked in pediatrics. Covering a shift for Marvin, I said, forcing myself to meet his eyes. His mother's in hospice? Always the helpful one. He kissed my cheek, his cologne overwhelming. Don't work too late. Marie's making dinner tonight. I watched him stride away, his expensive shoes clicking against the linoleum. My daughter cooking dinner? Marie hadn't set foot in our kitchen since she'd started spending time with Austin 3 months ago. The call light was still blinking. I pushed the cart toward it, my mind racing. Whatever Ronald was planning, he'd wrapped our entire family into his scheme. My sister, my daughter, my mother. Even Marie's tutor was involved. In the supply closet, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the one person I could still trust. Marvin, I need your help. My voice cracked. Remember when you said something felt off about Ronald's investment proposal for the hospital pension fund? I think I just found out why. The line went quiet for a moment. What do you need? He finally asked. Access to the hospital's financial records. And I hesitated, knowing this request would change everything. I need you to help me destroy my husband before he destroys our family. Another pause. Come to my office after your shift. Bring everything you've found so far. I ended the call and leaned against the metal shelving, my heart pounding. The game Ronald was playing had rules I didn't understand yet, but I was done being a pawn. It was time to become a player. The call light blinked again, more urgent now. I straightened my scrubs and took a deep breath. First, I had patients to care for. Then, I had a family to save. The financial records spread across Marvin's desk told a story of calculated deception. Each transaction, each transfer painted a clearer picture of Ronald's scheme. But it was my sister's text that made my blood run cold. Marie's not at my place, Martha wrote. She said she was staying with me tonight. I gripped the edge of Marvin's desk. I need to go. Wait. Marvin's hand hovered over a document. Look at these timestamps. The transfers to Austin's account started 3 months ago, right when Marie's grades began slipping. The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. That's when I hired him as her tutor. $2,000, weekly payments. Marvin tapped the screen. That's not tutoring money. My phone buzzed again. Martha. Found her. She's at that new cafe on 5th with Austin. Keep watching them, I texted back. I'm on my way. The cafe was packed with evening customers when I arrived. Through the window, I spotted my sister hunched in a corner booth, pretending to read a magazine. 3 tables away, Marie sat with Austin, her face animated as she gestured with her hands. The same way I used to at her age, when everything felt possible and adults were just obstacles to be overcome. She's been here an hour, Martha whispered as I slid into her booth. He keeps showing her something on his phone. She looks excited. I studied Austin's body language, the calculated way he leaned forward, how his eyes darted to the door every few minutes. Has Ronald called? Twice. I covered for her. Martha's fingers drummed against her coffee cup. Eliana, there's something else. Elijah called me this morning. The mention of her ex-husband's name made me turn. What did he want? He asked about Ronald, specific questions about his business practices, his partners. She lowered her voice. He said he's been investigating him for months, that Ronald's involved in something bigger than we realize. At Marie's table, Austin stood suddenly, heading toward the restroom. His phone lay face up on the table. Watch my purse, I said, standing. Eliana, don't... But I was already moving, timing my path to intersect with Marie's table. My daughter's eyes widened as I approached. Mom, what are you... I snatched Austin's phone, my fingers flying over the screen before it could lock. Messages, recent calls, photos. Hey! Austin's voice cut through the cafe chatter. What do you think you're doing? The last opened message thread caught my eye, from Ronald. Keep her occupied, whatever it takes. Marie grabbed for the phone. Mom, stop it! You're embarrassing me! I held the device out of reach, scrolling frantically. More messages appeared. Dates, times, instructions. A photo of bank documents. My signature forged. Austin reached us, his charm replaced by something harder. Mrs. Eliana, that's private property. Like the property you're helping my husband steal? The words came out sharp enough to draw stares from nearby tables. The tutoring was just a cover, wasn't it? What's he paying you to manipulate my daughter? Marie stood so quickly her chair toppled. He's not manipulating me. Austin's the only one who actually listens to me, who treats me like an adult. Marie. But she was already pushing past me, tears streaming down her face. Austin moved to follow her. I grabbed his arm. Touch my daughter again, and I'll make sure every college in the state knows what kind of tutor you really are. His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. Careful, Eliana. You don't want to make an enemy of your husband's friends. Martha appeared at my side as Austin retrieved his phone and left. Marie took off toward the bus stop. Want me to follow her? I shook my head, watching my daughter's retreating figure through the window. She'll go home. She has to keep up appearances for Ronald. What are you going to do? The cafe's overhead lights flickered, casting strange shadows across the empty table where my daughter had sat, plotting with my enemies. I'm going to talk to Elijah. If he's been investigating Ronald, he must have found something we can use. Be careful, Martha warned. Elijah's not exactly stable since the divorce. Neither am I. I gathered my purse, my mind already racing ahead to the next move in this dangerous game. Not anymore. The hospital's administrative files filled Marvin's computer screen, each document more damning than the last. My hands trembled as I read the numbers. Pension funds diverted, investment accounts drained, employee savings vanished into shell companies. Ronald's been systematically stealing from the hospital for years, Marvin said, his voice tight. But here's where it gets worse. He pulled up another document. Your signature's on half these authorizations. That's impossible. I know you didn't, but someone did. He pointed to a date. This one was signed while you were in surgery with that trauma case last month, remember? The 6-hour procedure? The room seemed to tilt sideways. He's setting me up to take the fall. There's more, Marvin hesitated. The board's launching an investigation. Your name's already been flagged. A knock at the office door made us both jump. The handle turned before we could respond, and my mother's caregiver stepped in. Jason? I straightened. What are you doing here? Your mother sent me. His usually calm face was etched with concern. She needs you at the house, now. I can't just... Ronald's there, he cut in, with Marie. The drive to my mother's house was a blur. Jason's car weaved through traffic as he spoke in low tones. They arrived an hour ago. Ronald was agitated, started talking about moving assets, protecting the family. Your mother seemed confused, but she kept agreeing with everything he said. And Marie? Silent, wouldn't look at anyone. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. There's something else. A man showed up just before I left, said his name was Elijah. Martha's ex-husband. My chest tightened. What did he want? Don't know. Your mother wouldn't let him in, but he said he'd wait. The scene at the house was worse than I'd imagined. Elijah stood in the driveway, arguing with my mother. Ronald's voice boomed from inside. Marie sat on the front steps, her face buried in her phone. You have no right to be here, my mother shouted at Elijah. Haven't you caused enough damage? Show her the papers, Elijah called when he saw me. Show her what her precious son-in-law's been doing with her foundation's money. Ronald appeared in the doorway. Eliana, don't listen to him. He's trying to destroy our family. Like you destroyed mine? Elijah advanced. Tell them how you really made your fortune. Tell them about the families you bankrupted. Mom? Marie's voice cracked. What's happening? I moved toward my daughter, but Ronald got there first. Go inside, sweetheart. This doesn't concern you. Everything concerns her, I said, including what you're paying Austin to do. The color drained from Ronald's face. Behind him, my mother gasped. You're all being manipulated, Ronald recovered quickly. Elijah's bitter about his divorce. He's turning you against me. The offshore accounts, Elijah interrupted. The forged documents, the missing pension funds. Should I keep going? Marie stood suddenly. Austin said you were helping him start a business. That's what the money was for. Marie, Ronald reached for her. Don't touch her. The words came out like ice. Don't you dare touch our daughter. Silence fell. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Show them, Elijah pressed. Show them what I found. I pulled out my phone, opened the files Marvin had sent. Mother, look at these. Really look. But my mother backed away. I don't want to see anything he's given you. Ronald's protected this family. He's been stealing from you for years, Jason spoke up. Everyone turned. He stepped forward, pulled an envelope from his jacket. I've been watching, documenting everything. The late-night calls, the mysterious visitors, the papers he makes you sign without reading. Ronald's mask cracked. For just a moment, I saw the truth. The desperation, the fury, the fear. Marie, I said softly, check your phone, the last message from Austin. She did. Her face crumpled as she read. I trusted you, she whispered to Ronald. Then she ran inside. This isn't over, Ronald snarled, but his eyes darted between faces, calculating odds, measuring loyalty. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. The front door slammed as Elijah stepped closer, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Should I tell them about Singapore, or shall you? Ronald's face went ash gray. Whatever Singapore meant, it was the key to everything. And suddenly I knew, this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about survival. The Singapore files lay scattered across Elijah's kitchen table like pieces of a shattered mirror, each fragment reflecting a different angle of Ronald's deception. 3 companies dissolved overnight, Elijah said, tapping a document. 48 employees left without severance. 1 man lost everything, his house, his savings. 2 weeks later, he drove his car off a bridge. My throat tightened. And Ronald? Walked away with millions, the same pattern he's using now with the hospital pension fund. He slid another paper forward. But here's what makes it personal. Martha's trust fund was part of that deal. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. Outside, rain peppered the windows, distorting the streetlights. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because Ronald's about to do it again, but this time... Elijah's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. Your mother's called an emergency family meeting, tonight. My own phone lit up with the message. Dinner at 7, attendance mandatory, my mother's way of maintaining the illusion of control. She's choosing sides, I said. She already has. Elijah gathered the papers. Ronald's convinced her to transfer her estate into a new trust, one he controls. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the rain-streaked glass, I recognized Jason's silhouette. Your mother sent me to fetch you, he said when I opened the door. His eyes darted to Elijah, then back to me. But there's something you need to know first. He pulled out his phone, played a recording. My mother's voice, thin with anxiety. The Singapore deal wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. Ronald promised. When was this? I demanded. Last night. She talks in her sleep sometimes, mentions dates, names. Jason lowered his voice. She knew about Singapore before it happened. She helped Ronald set it up. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. My own mother, complicit in destroying lives, including her younger daughter's future. There's more, Jason continued. Austin visited her yesterday morning. They talked about Marie's college fund. My hands curled into fists. She wouldn't dare. She already has. Elijah held up another document. The transfer was completed this morning. Ronald now controls every penny of Marie's education money. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. The tutoring, the late-night meetings, Austin's manipulation. It was all about isolating Marie, ensuring she'd side with Ronald when everything fell apart. My phone buzzed again. Martha. Marie's missing. Austin's not answering his phone. The world tilted sideways. I steadied myself against the doorframe. I know where they'll be, Elijah said, grabbing his keys. The same place Ronald took his victims in Singapore. Somewhere public, somewhere they can't make a scene while he explains how this is all for their own good. The drive to the art museum was tense with unspoken fears. We found them in the East Wing: Ronald, my mother, Austin, and Marie. My daughter's face was streaked with tears as Ronald gestured at something on his tablet. "Just sign here, sweetheart," he was saying. "It's the only way to protect your future. The only thing she needs protection from is you." My voice carried across the empty gallery. Ronald's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing raw fury before smoothing into concern. "Eliana, you're not thinking clearly. Tell her, Gabrielle. Tell her how we're trying to help." My mother stepped forward, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. "Sometimes love means making difficult choices." "Like Singapore?" The words hit their mark. My mother stumbled back. "Jason recorded everything, Mother, every guilty whisper, every confession." Marie looked between us, confusion turning to understanding. "What's Singapore?" "Ask your grandmother," Elijah said quietly. "Ask her about the man who died because of their difficult choices." Austin moved toward Marie, but I was faster. "Touch her, and every recording, every document goes public. Your promising future ends right here." "Marie," Ronald tried one last time. "You know I only want what's best." "What you want," I cut in, "is control. But it's over. The hospital board knows everything. The police will too once they see what Elijah found." The tablet slipped from Ronald's hands, clattering on the marble floor. In the shattered screen, I caught my reflection and saw something I hadn't noticed before. I was smiling. The dining room in my mother's house felt like a stage set for a Greek tragedy. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light, throwing prismatic shadows across faces that had become unrecognizable to me. Ronald sat at the head of the table, my mother to his right, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. "You're being unreasonable," my mother said, cutting her meat with precise movements. "Ronald has always protected this family." Marie pushed her food around her plate. The bruise on her wrist, from when she'd fallen earlier that afternoon, was darkening to purple. An accident that happened moments after she'd tried to tell me something about Austin. "Protection shouldn't leave bruises," I said. Ronald's fork clinked against his plate. "That was unfortunate, but if she hadn't been running—" "From what?" Martha interrupted. "What exactly was my niece running from?" The air crackled with tension. Jason moved silently around the table, refilling water glasses, his presence a reminder of everything he'd overheard. "Marie," Ronald's voice softened dangerously, "why don't you tell them about the scholarship opportunity Austin found for you, the one in Singapore?" My daughter's face went pale. I haven't decided." "It's already arranged," my mother cut in. "The paperwork just needs signatures." The room tilted sideways. "Singapore. Always Singapore." "She's 17, I said. "She can't leave the country without my consent." "Actually," Ronald pulled out a folder, "as her legal guardian—" "What did you say?" "The papers you signed last month for Marie's college fund?" He smiled. "They included a transfer of guardianship. Temporary, of course, just until she turns 18. Martha's glass shattered in her grip, blood mixed with water on the white tablecloth. "You forged those papers," I whispered. "Prove it." Ronald's mask slipped, revealing something reptilian beneath. "Your signatures on everything. The hospital transfers, the trust documents, even the Singapore arrangements. Who do you think they'll believe? The respected businessman or the unstable nurse who's been making wild accusations?" "Tell them," Marie suddenly burst out, "tell them what Austin really—" The crash came from behind me. I turned to see Jason sprawled on the floor, a serving tray overturned beside him. Marie screamed. "He's having a seizure!" my mother cried. But I'd seen seizures. This wasn't one. Jason's eyes found mine as he convulsed, trying to form words. "Call an ambulance!" Martha grabbed her phone. "No!" Ronald stood. "I'll take him. My car's faster." "Don't!" Jason gasped. "The drink, he—" Understanding hit like a thunderbolt. I lunged for Marie's untouched water glass, but Ronald was faster. It shattered against the wall. "Mother," I said quietly, "what did you let him do?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Sometimes sacrifices—" "Sacrifices?" Martha's voice rose hysterically. "Like Singapore? Like that man who died?" Marie stood so quickly her chair toppled. "What man? What are you talking about?" "Your grandfather," Jason managed, his breathing labored. "Tell her about her grandfather." The color drained from my mother's face. Ronald moved toward Jason, but Marvin, who'd been silent until now, blocked his path. "The ambulance is coming," Martha said, "and the police." "You've lost control," I told Ronald, "of everything." His laugh was hollow. "Have I? Marie's still legally under my guardianship. The hospital board still has evidence of your fraud, and now a tragic accident at a family dinner. He glanced at Jason. Stress can do terrible things to people. Marie, I said, not taking my eyes off Ronald. Get your things. You're leaving with Martha. She's not going anywhere. Ronald's hand closed around Marie's arm. Tell them, sweetheart, tell them how happy you are about Singapore. My daughter looked at me, then at the bruise on her wrist, then at Jason still gasping on the floor. Something shifted in her eyes. You're right, she said quietly. I should tell them everything. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ronald's grip tightened. I should tell them about the recordings, Marie continued. The ones Austin didn't know I was making. Every meeting, every threat, every promise about Singapore. She pulled out her phone. Should we play them now? The look on Ronald's face made me realize he wasn't the only one who could orchestrate a staged catastrophe. The hospital's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as I watched Jason fight for his life through the ICU window. The doctors had confirmed what I already knew: targeted poisoning, carefully dosed to look like natural causes. He's stabilized, Marvin said, joining me, but the police want to know why you delayed calling the ambulance. My hands curled into fists. They think I was involved? Ronald's been talking to them, suggesting things. He hesitated. The board suspended you pending investigation. A nurse I'd worked with for 10 years walked past, averting her eyes. My reputation, my career, everything I'd built, dissolving like sugar in rain. My phone buzzed. Martha. Marie's gone. The world tilted sideways. What? She went to get her laptop from the house. Austin was waiting. They left together 20 minutes ago. The memory of Marie's bruised wrist flashed through my mind. Track her phone. Already tried. It's off. But Elijah says he knows where Austin takes his targets. Some warehouse by the industrial park. Don't move. I'm coming. But as I turned to leave, 2 police detectives blocked my path. Mrs. Eliana, the older one said, we need to discuss the incident at your mother's house and some concerning financial transactions. My daughter's missing. We know. Your husband's already filed a report. Claims you've been unstable, making threats. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. Through the ICU window, Jason's monitors beeped steadily, each sound a reminder of how Ronald had nearly killed him to keep him quiet. Check his water glass, I said. From the dinner. Check Jason's blood work. You'll find... The evidence has been contaminated, the younger detective cut in. Your mother's housekeeper already cleaned everything up, on Ronald's instructions. Of course she had. Ronald never left loose ends. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. The message contained one image, a photograph I'd never seen before. My mother, 20 years younger, standing beside a man I recognized from the Singapore files. The man who'd died. Below it, text appeared. Ask your mother who really killed your father. The timestamp showed it came from Marie's phone. I need to go, I told the detectives. Now. If you leave the hospital, we'll have to... Marvin stepped between us. I'm invoking medical privacy laws. This conversation is over until her lawyer arrives. They're taking Marie to Singapore, I said once we were alone. Ronald's recreating his old pattern. But this time... I showed him the photo. His face went gray. Your father's car accident. It wasn't... An accident? Apparently not. The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. That's why my mother always supported Ronald. He helped her hide something. Where are you going? To the warehouse. Martha and Elijah are meeting me. The police will follow you. Let them. I touched the ICU glass one last time. Jason risked everything to protect Marie. I won't let that be for nothing. But in the parking lot, my mother waited beside my car. You can't stop this, she said. Some secrets have to stay buried. Like what really happened to my father? She flinched. You don't understand. I understand that you and Ronald murdered my father. That you've been helping him destroy lives ever since. That now you're helping him take my daughter. To protect her, Singapore is safe, far from all this mess you're creating. The last time Ronald sent someone to Singapore, they died. Your father was weak. He would have ruined everything, just like you're trying to do now. She pulled out her phone. One call, and those detectives arrest you. Marie goes to Singapore with Austin, clean slate. And if I back off? Then maybe we can discuss arrangements, supervised visits once she's settled. The hospital lights cast my mother's shadow long and dark across the pavement. In it, I saw every lie, every manipulation, every moment she'd chosen Ronald's schemes over her own children. You know what's funny? I said quietly. I actually recorded that entire conversation, just like Marie recorded Austin. I guess it runs in the family. Her face contorted. She reached for her phone, but I was already moving. Behind her, Marvin appeared with the detectives. I'll tell them everything, she hissed as they approached. Good. I got into my car. Start with Singapore. I'm sure they'd love to hear about my father's accident. In the rearview mirror, I watched them lead her away. One betrayal exposed. But Marie was still out there, and time was running out. The warehouse loomed against the twilight sky, its broken windows reflecting the last traces of sunlight. Martha's car was already parked outside, Elijah standing guard beside it. Third floor, he said as I approached. Ronald's waiting with Austin. They have Marie. The police? 10 minutes out, but... He hesitated. There's something else. The Singapore files. They weren't just about money laundering. They were about human trafficking. Young girls sent overseas as students. The bruise on Marie's wrist flashed through my mind. That's why he wanted guardianship. Eliana, Martha emerged from the shadows. Jason's awake. He told the police everything. About Mother, about Dad's accident, about Ronald's operation. Then we end this. Now. The warehouse stairs creaked under our feet. Each step brought back memories. My father's smile, my mother's lies, Ronald's calculated manipulation of everyone I loved. We found them in what had once been an office. Marie sat in a corner, Austin's hand on her shoulder. Ronald stood by a desk covered in papers, looking almost bored. Right on schedule, he said, though I expected you sooner. It's over, I said. The police know everything, about Singapore, about the trafficking, about my father. Do they? He smiled. Or do they have the story your mother's telling them? About how you've lost your mind with paranoid delusions, how you've been threatening Marie, tampering with hospital records? I have proof. You have nothing. Every document, every recording, it all leads back to you. The perfect fall from grace. Respected nurse becomes unstable conspiracy theorist, loses everything, he gestured to Marie, including her daughter. Show her, Marie said suddenly. Ronald's smile faltered. What? Show her what you made me record, my daughter's voice trembled. The confession you forced me to make. Austin's grip tightened on her shoulder. Marie. Or I could show them this instead. She pulled out her phone. Every meeting, every threat, every detail about Singapore, about what really happened to my grandfather. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Ronald's mask cracked, revealing something feral beneath. You ungrateful little... He lunged for the phone. Several things happened at once. Austin pulled Marie back. Martha screamed. Elijah moved to intercept Ronald. And I saw the glint of metal in Ronald's hand. The gunshot echoed off concrete walls. Elijah stumbled, clutching his side. Martha ran to him as Ronald turned the gun toward Marie. The phone, he said. Now. It's already uploaded, Marie said. Everything, to every news outlet in the city, to the police, to the hospital board. You're lying. Check your phone, I said quietly. The notifications should be starting right about now. His free hand fumbled for his pocket. As his attention wavered, Austin made his move, but not the one I expected. He shoved Marie toward Ronald. We had a deal, Austin said. I deliver her to Singapore, I get my cut. You pathetic. Marie twisted away from both men. I recorded you too, every promise, every plan. Did you really think I was that naive? Sirens wailed in the distance. Ronald's composure shattered completely. You're just like your father, he snarled at me. He couldn't understand either. The bigger picture, the necessity of sacrifice. The only sacrifice, I said, was letting you into our lives. He raised the gun again, but this time Marie was ready. She threw her phone at his face as Martha tackled him from behind. The gun skittered across the floor. Austin bolted for the door, but Elijah, despite his wound, caught him with a well-placed punch. Singapore, Ronald spat as I picked up his gun. You have no idea what you've lost. The connections, the power. The only power you had, I said, was what we gave you. And now? I nodded toward the window where red and blue lights painted the warehouse walls. Now you have nothing. As the police burst in, I watched my husband's empire crumble. But it was Marie's hand slipping into mine that told me we'd truly won. Mom? She whispered. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. About the recordings. You did exactly what you needed to do. I squeezed her hand. You survived, just like I taught you. Through the broken windows, dawn began to break. the first light of a world without Ronald's shadows. The visiting room at the detention center smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Austin sat across from me, his charm replaced by something harder, more desperate. "I want a deal," he said. "You had your chance for deals." I placed a folder on the table. "But there's something you still haven't explained, the other girls." His eyes darted to the guard by the door. "I don't know what—" Oh. Singapore wasn't just about Marie. Ronald's operation went back years. How many others did you help him target? Help him? Austin's laugh was brittle. "You still don't get it, do you? This was my operation. Ronald was just the money man, the respectable face. I found the girls, I groomed them, He stopped, realizing too late what he'd admitted. Behind the two-way mirror, I knew the detectives were recording everything. Marie was different, he continued quickly. I actually cared. Save it for your trial. I stood. The Singapore authorities are particularly interested in your testimony. Outside, Marie waited with Martha. My daughter's face had regained its color, though the bruise on her wrist had faded to a yellowish reminder. Did he confess? She asked. To everything, including the other victims. I touched her shoulder. You saved them, you know. Your recordings, your courage, you brought down their entire network. But not without help, she glanced at Martha. Aunt Martha taught me how to hide the recordings, and Elijah is recovering well, Martha finished. The doctors say he can leave the hospital next week. We drove to the courthouse where my mother's hearing was scheduled. Jason sat on the steps, looking frail but determined. They're ready for us, he said. Inside, my mother wouldn't meet my eyes as she pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges. The judge's words washed over me. Sentences, restitution, closure. But it was my mother's final statement that cut deepest. I thought I was protecting them, she said. Like I protected myself when their father threatened to expose my affairs. Ronald promised to make it look like an accident. Marie squeezed my hand as the bailiff led my mother away. At home, our new home, bought with the recovered funds from Ronald's accounts, I found Marie in her father's old study. She held a photograph I hadn't seen in years. My father teaching me to ride a bike, his smile bright and real. Do you hate her? Marie asked. Grandmother? No. I sat beside her. Hate takes too much energy, and we need that energy for rebuilding. The police found 3 more girls, she said quietly. In Singapore. They're coming home. Because of you. Because we fought back. All of us. She traced my father's face in the photo. Do you think he'd be proud? Of us exposing a trafficking ring? Of you being brave enough to gather evidence? Of our family choosing truth over comfortable lies? I smiled. Yes, but he'd be prouder of what we do next. Which is? Live, help others. Remember that revenge isn't about destroying people, it's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. The doorbell rang. Martha stood outside with Marvin and Elijah carrying takeout containers. The hospital board called, Marvin announced as we set up dinner. They've reinstated you, with back pay and an apology. And Ronald? Martha asked, talking to prosecutors, trying to save himself. Elijah's wound made him wince as he sat. But with Austin's confession, Marie placed the last plate on the table. Mom, I've been thinking about college. Singapore's definitely off the list, I said. Actually, she straightened, I want to study criminal justice. Help other families fight back. The evening light filtered through our new windows, casting warm shadows across faces that had weathered betrayal and emerged stronger. Not unscathed, but unbroken. First rule of fighting back, I said, raising my glass. Never do it alone. To family, Martha offered. To truth, Elijah added. To justice, Marie said firmly. To all of it, I finished, and to whatever comes next. Outside, the sun set on the remnants of Ronald's empire, but inside, surrounded by the people who'd fought beside me, I finally understood. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free.